3, 2, 1, go. So this is Dear Esther. Once the loading is finished, I am going to start mashing keys. If the loading finishes. This is a really long loading. Alright. Whoa, my sensitivity. Okay, so this is Dear Esther.
How long I've been here.
You can't jump in this game, which is problematic, because jumping is fast.
To actually see the forms and shapes in front of me.
So instead, I'm going to have to use AD spam, which is basically me holding forwards and mashing left and right the whole time, and that's slightly faster than just going forwards. So this game has a few death warps, and there's 2 triggers in this ocean here. One of them will teleport me back to the start if I die in there, and the other one will teleport me to the far end of the beach where I need to be. So I dive into the water about where the split is between those 2 triggers. And that puts me almost at the other side of the beach. So I have to go up these stairs, and then at a certain point I can start wall strafing, about here. And the wall strafing is basically I walk into a wall, I look into the wall slightly and I walk into it, so I hold forward and whatever key goes into the wall. And that's slightly faster than AD spam, but most of these walls are a bit have funky hitboxes, so there's a chance I can get stuck on them, which is slow. So it's kind of a faster but less consistent. So you gotta decide which wall do I wall strafe off and which one do I not.
Shadow of the ridge across the beach. All the world as if you had signed your name in untidy.
So this wall doesn't work. Not all walls work. I guess it depends on like the angle of the wall, and it is really weird. So right now this seems rather boring. I guess it is. But to me it is not, because at some point my fingers are going to start hurting, because I will be mashing keys as fast as I can for 20 minutes. And I don't have a good technique, it seems, so about 15 minutes in, maybe 10 even, my fingers will start hurting. Okay, so there's 3 triggers down here, and I gotta hit a specific one. Okay, that's the wrong one. If I hit 2 wrong triggers, it will teleport me back up here. If I hit the right trigger, it will teleport me back at Stonehenge, which you can see in the background there. Okay, that's the wrong trigger as well. But there's a tiny gap in between those 2 triggers, and I hope I will get it soon, because I died. So I died, which puts me at an autosave, which this game surprisingly does autosave.
Died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice. They cut parallel.
So they knew that you could die in this game. Even like most of the triggers, they're fake deaths, but you can die for real by fall damage. Oh, that's bad. I want to surf down the rock, and it is rather tricky, but I should have gotten it at this point already. Wrong fence.
The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Okay, there we go. At last.
Come back.
So now that will teleport me here, and this, I'm not sure. This probably still saves time over going the long way around, actually. I'm not sure how much that lasts. So I don't know. It is a really long way if you go all the way around. That one saves quite a fat chunk. So I'm gonna just make sure that I'm going in a straight line and then use my other hand for mashing, because I'm faster to mash keys with my right hand than with my left hand. I could rebind my keys, but that's lame. This is any percent no key rebinding, really. And that's the first map done. Quick finger stretching. And these loadings are long. I'm not sure why.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have already
So the first map had, I guess, 2 death warps in it. 2 warps where I hit specific triggers and like it teleports me forwards.
To serve as some evidence.
The second map does have a skip as well in it actually, but not just yet. So these fences I could wall strafe off, but it's rather awkward. So here's a long stretch where I can miss. And then upcoming is a turn to the right, and there's this hill, which I can somewhat climb over. Then slide down here.
After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline
And then make my way over there.
Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape.
And this fence is not good for wall strafing. Not at all. Okay, so this next bit has a few rocks. I'm going to climb up another hill. I'm not going to be taking the path, I'm just going over the grass, through the grass. But you can see here there's a bunch of rocks, and climbing over them can be a bit tricky. Okay. That's acceptable, I guess.
I've begun to climb.
And here's a fence that I can wall strafe.
It is a straight line to the summit, where the evening begins to coil around the aerial and squeeze the signals into early silence. The bothy
and then here I could go over to that cabin that you might have seen, and then walk the long way around, or I could go down here and get a really slow drop, but it's still a drop, it's still safe. You know, walking all the way to that cabin and going up and like down the stairs on the right. It saves a significant chunk of time, and it's actually really easy to discover.
They found the phosphorescent moss that grows in the caves deep under the nail.
Because it's not anything special really, you just walk down a cliff. Yeah, you have to do it at specific points though, because if you do it further down or further up the hill, there will be more of them triggers that put you back up the hill and say come back. So I hope this rock is not solid. Okay, it's not. So the AD spam mechanic, it actually exists in all the Source games at least. I'm not sure about Source or Gold Source, but it exists ever since Half-Life 2 Episode 2. I'm not sure if it works in Half-Life 2 Old Engine actually.
But it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end.
So you will see this be used in other games, although other games have bunny hopping of course, so it's has very little uses there, but like in Portal 2 there might be like a hallway there where jumping is just too awkward. In Half-Life 2 Dwarmov there's a few instances where I use it. I'm not sure about other runners though,
through the caves.
because it is a rather difficult glitch to spot and recognize if you're just watching a stream, because the wobbling can be really subtle. Here's a cutscene with a default get up animation, and this is maybe the longest map. I honestly don't know if this or the last map is the longest, but the previous 2 maps were rather short. So here's a tunnel, and for those wondering, AD spam makes you go like 20%, maybe 30% faster. I don't actually know how much faster, but it's a significant bit. And overall on this run I think it saves like 2 to 3 minutes, so you definitely want to use it. And then I go up this hill. It's rather slow because your character crouches, and then I can slide down here. Almost. So if I had gotten that slide I would have landed here and I would have not have to swim that bit. Saves quite some time actually. But I didn't get it. This tunnel, well, not this one, but there's a few tunnels coming up that are really narrow and where there's hardly any room to AD spam or you'll get stuck on stuff. Which is fun. Don't want to drop down here because it just goes back down to where I dropped down like a few seconds ago. Yeah, it's just one of them tunnels where the ceiling gets a bit low and like it's really narrow here. Don't want to get stuck on the walls because that loses time. So this is where the mushrooms come in. Fungi. And up next we're going to get to a really big room. A really big cave. And I think there's like something at the far end of the cave. Like all the way to the left and to the right. You can see how big this cave is. But walking in this game is rather slow, so I've actually never been there. It's like the one area in this game that I haven't explored, just because I couldn't be asked walking over there, and even with AD spam it's still rather slow. I can walk through this rock, not through the others though. So that's a shortcut. And then we're going up in this big room. I like the layout of this room though, like it has like cool pathways, like a bridge kind of thing, and then there's this ledge here, which is really cool. It's a really cool cave. If I were to start an underground civilization, these rocks again. If I were to start an underground civilization, I would put them in like a cave like this. I think you could do some quite some interesting architectural
reflected in the
how's the signs in here? But alas, we have clean sky. There's no need for us to go and live underground. So why would we? If we have sunlight. Alright, up next my character will start crouching. Soon. There we go. So my character is crouching now. And for some reason, when my character is crouching, but only during this bit, AD spam will actually be slower. I don't know why, but it is. So I get to rest my fingers for a bit and do some hand stretching exercise. Same for swimming. AD spam is not actually faster in when you're swimming. So I will uncrouch here, so I will AD spam for a bit, go up this ledge, wall strafe, and then swim. Why is he crouching? I don't know, the ceiling becomes too low, I guess, but it's outside of my control. So you can see the waterfall. I'm going to drop down there and it will start a flashback sequence. The flashback sequence ends when you hit specific triggers. So you're supposed to like swim in the flashback sequence. You can either swim forwards and look at the flashback sequence, or you can swim up and there's another trigger. So you could kind of see like a traffic light there, which has to do with the flashback sequence. And then I am completely horribly lost. There we go. They say if you get trapped under ice, you should swim towards the dark spot and not the light spot. I'm not trapped under ice though, so I go towards the light spot. But I got horribly lost there for a bit. Like I messed up the movements I do during the black screen after the flashback. Anyway, we're going towards the light. it's really narrow here as well. So there's a flashback, or a fade to black, not a flashback. And this loads the last map. With a really long loading. It's getting dark. It's already dark outside, but it's full moon, so we can see. The music is good in this game. It's really simple piano music, but it's just good.
In this place. We would have had so much to debate. Did he paint these stones or did I? Who left the pots in the hut by the jetty? Who formed the museum under the sea? Who fell silently to his death into the frozen waters? Who erected this godforsaken aerial in the first place? Did this whole island rise to the surface of my stomach, forcing the gulls to take flight?
So up ahead is a sea. I could take a shortcut through the sea, but as I said earlier, you can't AD spam while swimming. So while it would be a shortcut, it's actually slower. So I'm going to take a smaller shortcut that still goes through the water, but in such a way that I won't have to swim.
The more sanitary. I could not bear the thought of the reassembly of such a ruin. Stitching arm to shoulder and femur to hip, charting a line of thread like traffic stilled on a motorway.
So I'm alternating between hands because there's quite a bunch of straight lines here for me to walk. So I can use my right hand a lot on this bit.
Make a phosphorescent paint for these rocks and ceiling. There were chemical diagrams on the posters on the wall.
If only you could hear me mashing my keyboard, but I don't think my microphone picks it up, unless maybe it does while I'm talking.
Your nerves and your muscles in the next room. I crammed diazepam as I once crammed for chemistry examinations. I am revising my options for a long and happy life.
But yeah, by far this is the most painful speedrun I know, just because of how long you have to mash keys as fast as possible.
I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out.
The end is pretty fun because you get to climb up
I took each and every
a hill, and there's a bunch of walls that I can wall strafe off.
Folded you into the creases, and then.
And it alternates a lot between AD spam and actual wall strafing.
Shattered into 21 pieces.
If I don't get stuck on the walls, I can actually wall strafe off of
I
these.
sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Until I get to this pole, on which I will get stuck. And then it's AD spam. But that's a significant wall strafing bit there.
The pain in my leg sent me blind for a few minutes.
And then I have to not get stuck on the rocks, and it is quite grassy and like tall grass here. So it is easy for a rock to be hidden away in the grass that I can get stuck on. There was one to my right there.
I can see a thick black line of infection.
I went the wrong way, but I don't think it will matter.
Through the few
Supposed to go to the left of the fence there.
I have cut from the lowlands towards the aerial.
The path will make like a slight bend to the left here. I will ignore that bend and go straight towards that candle up ahead. I hope there's not any rocks in my way. Rocks are fixed, they're not RNG, but it's hard to remember where they all are. This rock, for example, alright, it's not solid. So some of those rocks are solid and some of them are not. Sometimes there's invisible rocks that are solid, which is like literally invisible, like they don't actually exist, but you get stuck on them anyway. This rock to my right here is solid, I'm pretty sure of that. And there's an antenna up ahead, where we are going.
When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Eat. Did he?
If only Donnelly had experienced this,
some words.
He would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis.
I'm digging the red lights that these candles give. And there's a bunch of rocks that prevent me from going in a straight line towards the fence or towards the gate. Annoying if you ask me.
The stones in my stomach will weigh me down and ensure my descent is true and straight.
But we're there already. This is the gate towards the antenna, and it's open for us.
All my functions are clogged, all my
We can
veins
wall
are
strafe
choked.
for a bit here,
My
but
leg doesn't rot
not
off before I reach the
entirely.
summit. It will be a miracle. There are 21 connections in the circuit diagram.
Wall
for the
strafe off
antelope
of this
place.
railing.
There
I
are
never
21
understood why I
species
could
of gull
wall strafe on
inhabiting
that
these
railing,
islands.
which you can.
It is
Like you can't on
21
this one.
miles
Not that
between
it matters
Sanford
because we're going to
Junction
do a
and the
death
turn
walk
off
where
for
we hit the
home.
trigger.
All these things
And this will
cannot,
teleport us slightly
will
further
not
up the
be
stairs.
a coincidence.
So you can't wall strafe off of this one either. I think I missed the trigger. Let's do it again.
Come back.
Okay, so you could wall strafe over this one, but not off this one.
For the bones of the hermit, for the traces of Donnelly, for any sign of Jakobsen's flock, for the empty bottle that would
And
incriminate.
there's another death warp here.
I have scoured this stretch of motorway 21 times, attempting to recreate
And this
his
will teleport me
trajectory.
even further up
Point
the
when his
stairs.
heart stopped dead, and all he saw was the moon over the Sanford
So
Junction.
here's a U-turn,
He
and
was
then
not
I can
drunk,
wall strafe
Esther.
over
He
this
was not
fence,
drunk at
but
all, and it
not
was not
quite.
his fault. It was the converging lines that doomed him. This is not a recorded
got
natural
stuck.
condition. The gulls do not fly so low over the motorway and cause him to swerve. The paint scored away from his car in lines like an infection, making directly for the
That was
heart.
slow. And get ready for time, Yalte. So there's the stairs to the antenna. It's solid concrete. We're going to wall strafe off of it and then not turn around. We're gonna walk backwards. And time.
Dear Esther, I have burned the cliffs of Damascus. I have drunk deep of it.
I'll hit
My
it as
heart
soon
is
as
my leg and a black
I get it on
line
stream.
etched on the paper all
Alright.
along this boat without a bottom. You are all the
Alright.
world like a nest to me.
New gym.
Eggs unbroken,
GG.
like fossils.
So that is a
come
painful
together,
run.
Send small black
My
flowers to
hand
the air.
somewhat hurts, although not as much. I had a better mashing technique than usual, I guess.
From this
Also, a
island,
22-minute run is really
flight
bad. I should
from
be
this
able to get
grief.
like
laugh.
20 minutes. Like a low 20 at worst. But I missed the skip at the start a bunch, so that adds to